So now we're going to add a game over screen that you can see when you're crashing so that you can restart the game. And we're going to use our distance as a basis here. So let's go into our scene view, and if we look at our main canvas, we have our distance canvas here. So let's just duplicate this one and let's rename it. So we're going to call it game over canvas, game over. And we don't want it to be on the edge, rather we're going to have it on the top center part. So let's anchor it to our top here. And let's move our point, the pivot point, so it's at 0.5 and 0.5. And we need it to be a little bit bigger. So let's assume that it's going to be something like 300, maybe 400. Yeah, that looks all right. And we are going to reuse our panel here, but this part is going to be our header. So let's rename our panel here to background, or rather this is going to be the background, and then we will need a header. So the background, we are going to have a slightly brighter background, so it's going to be 75, because the sorting in Unity is from sort of top and upright. So if we add our header here, let's call this header, and let's make sure that our background it's stretching fully, right? And our header here, this is going to be a top part, it's just going to be stretching in the sideways direction using the top here. And let's make sure that our background is actually, the pivot needs to be 0.5, and our header here is well 0.5. So if we now stretch our canvas, so it's going to be full size here, something like that. So if we look at our background here, this is going to be the background, and this other part is our header. So let's make the header a little bit darker. I think it was like something 40. So now we can see that, okay, distance text is not distance, it's header text. And in our header, let's write game over. So our background here, it's sorting. This is the bottom layer, and this is above it, right? So if we change the order here, we can see that our header is no longer visible. And I think we're gonna increase our canvas size. Actually, it needs to be something like not 40, 500. And we can see that it's sort of responsive, or at least a little bit. So we can easily change our texts. And in our background, let's take our distance text, and we don't want it to be a child of our background. Rather, let's make it a child of the whole game object here, the game over canvas. So now we can take our distance text here, and we'll go under, right? So that's good. And this part we are not going to stretch in that way, at least. So we're going to use the full sort of size of the sides. So let's make it a little bit, add margins to it, and our height is going to be 300. Instead, it's going to be a distance traveled. So it's going to be like, okay, distance traveled, and some number. And we are going to use fixed fonts here, so it's easier to decide the size of the whole thing. So let's put it actually at something like 50 or 40. 40 is good, I think. Our header here, let's not use auto-sizing. Instead, we want to be able to control it 50, 60. Oops, 60. So the header here needs to be a little bit bigger. The whole thing needs to actually grow a little bit. So something like that. And our header here, I want it to be bigger. So 100, 120. There we go. Ah, Maybe it got a bit, I got carried away. Let's make it 100. And distance traveled, and height 200. And that looks okay. And then we need a button, right? So we want to have a button that we can react to when we have lost. We want to be able to restart the game. So we need a button here. So let's go and add that. UI, and then add a button with Text Mesh Pro. And we are going to make it bigger, 300 and 90. And let's move it down. So, and we are going to replace our text here. So we don't want that text, we want to use our text that we have. And let's make it change it to text. Okay, and it's going to be centered on the button. And we need to reduce the font here, right? 30, 40, 30, 40. And let's make the button a little bit bigger. Fun. And let's change the color so it becomes black, so we can see that, okay, it's definitely sticking out, right? And this distance traveled, maybe it should fit on a single row. Traveled. How do you spell traveled? Traveled, traveled, traveled. Something like that, I think is correct. And yeah, that looks alright, I think. Distance traveled 6,000 and a game over button. And just fiddle around a bit. So let's have our rect transform anchored to the bottom. So now we can hopefully resize this whole thing, and the elements should sort of follow, and we can make it wider as well, so it's easier to adapt to our needs. Okay, so let's see if we can make it 40, 60, no, 50, 50, 45, 45. Okay, so this is good enough. And one final thing that we're gonna do is in our game here, when we are sort of playing, we want we don't want maybe it to be fully like take over the whole screen. We want it to more blend in. So what we can do is we can add a canvas group here, and we can put the alpha to 0.8. And actually, when I play the game, let's move it up a little bit. Okay, so now if we then crash, we have a sort of half transparent window here, and the cool part is that we can fade this in, right? So we can go like whoop when you die and stop at 0.8. I think it's going to be pretty good. So this is what we are going to add the code for, so it becomes visible and that we can handle the click of a button here. So let's go into scripts and open our UI handler in our editor. So the first thing is that we need our serialized fields for our Text Mesh Pro for the game over, and then we need the serialized field as well for our canvas group. So let's add those. Then in our start, we are going to change our canvas group here so it doesn't become interactable. So if it's not interactable, it means that we cannot click on any of its buttons. So we're going to set that to false. And then we are going to set the alpha of this canvas group to 0. So it means that it's going to be full transparent and we cannot see it. And then when we have crashed, we want to be able to show it, right? So instead of keeping track of our car and sort of detecting whenever it's crashing in our update here, we are going to add an event. So let's go to our car handler here, and let's go to the top, and let's be using system. So with system we can access events in C#, which I think are easier to use than the default Unity events. So we need to add a public, well, let's write a comment events and then public, and it's going to be an action, and we're going to reference our car handler here, and then we're going to call it onPlayerCrashed. So an event here, the action is the sort of the keyword that we're going to use, and then we can supply additional parameters so we know which car has crashed if we would have multiple cars. We can also feed it with additional information, but this is enough for now. Okay, so then in our code we already know when our car is crashing because we are detecting it. So here we have on collision enter, and if it goes all the way here, it's exploded, car crash, play, and here we want to trigger our event. So let's add a trigger event, just a comment, and then on player crashed question mark dot invoke this. This is going to trigger our event here. So now in our UI handler we can use that event because we're subscribing here to our can use our car handler and subscribe to that event. So now we can take our player handler here, player car handler, and then we have on player crash plus equal, and then let's create a function for it, and we need to create that. So let's just create it and maybe write events so we know that this is the events section, and it's going to be a void, right? So now when we are crashing, my formatting is not the best today. All right, so plus equal car player handler on crash, and it's going to call this on crash. And on our crash we want to update our text, right? So before I was writing something like distance traveled or whatever, let's just keep it at distance. So game over text is going to be equal, and then we'll add the $sign so we can add variables easily, distance, and then angel brackets, distance travel text, and end of angel brackets. And then we want to animate our whole part, right? So we want to be able to show this canvas group here and in an animated way. So let's use a coroutine for that. So enumerator and start game over animation, and then angel brackets and angel brackets. So this will need a yield, so we need to be sure that, okay, how long are we going to wait until we do something? So we are going to yield, return, new, wait for seconds, real time 3. So the reason why we're using real time is because we had this slow down effect, right? And we want to be able to count exactly 3 seconds in real time. And then we want to take our canvas here, so our game over canvas group, and we want to say that, okay, after 3 seconds we're going to allow it to be interactable. And then we are going to start our fade here, right? So our fade, we are going to do a while loop, and while the game over canvas alpha is less than 0.8, we're going to loop. And what we will take is our game over canvas alpha here, and we're going to say that, okay, we are going to move towards the canvas group alpha, which is the value, right? And from this value to 1.0. So it's going to be fully transparent. That's what we're aiming for, but it's going to cut off at 0.8 anyway, but that doesn't matter. Time, delta time times 2. So we're going to move twice as fast as our current timer. And this is using not real time, so if we slow down the time, it's going to use that. And then we need a yield return null, so we're waiting for the end of the frame. So this is going to loop, and then after it reaches this condition, it's going to exit, and then we are going to be done with it. And we'll see. The type of IN number is going to be found. We're missing a reference. Yes, so we're missing a reference, and we need to be using system.collections. Okay, so, and we need to call our coroutine, right? So once the player has crashed and we are updating our text here, we're going to start coroutine, start game over animation CO. So that's going to start our coroutine. And then we need one final thing, and that is a way for us to restart. So our button needs a function that it can call. So let's do a public void on restart click, and let's restore our time here. So if the time scale has become something less than 0 or less than 1, we want it to be 1 again. And then our scene manager, that's load scene and our active scene .name. And this as well, we need to be using our scene manager for this. So let's add using Unity Engine Scene Management. Okay, so I think that this will be sufficient. Let's save that and go back into Unity. Okay, so let's change our distance travel, because we just had distance, right? So distance and then some value, something like that. Now we can make it a little bit bigger again, 15 maybe. Yeah, let's see with that. And now we need to hook up our slots here. So we have game over canvas group. So let's hook that up, and our game over distance travel text here. Let's just change it to game over text. Game over text. Okay, so now we are ready to take this for a spin and see how it works. So let's hit play and hope for the best. Ah, I forgot to hook up the button. Well, okay, so let's just crash. Oh. And then we have our non-working button, but the other parts were working. So let's try it again. So our button here needs to be hooked up, right? On click, plus drag and drop our canvas there and select on restart clicked. Okay, so let's try it again. Boom. And it fades in, and we can see that, okay, our game over button is actually not really working. So why is that? Well, it can be a couple of cases, but what we can do is if we dock our game view here, we can go into our event system here, and in our event system we can see that, okay, what's under our pointer here. So if we hover over, we can see that it's not detecting our game over button. Why is that? Okay, so if we examine our main canvas, we can see that it has a graphic raycaster here, and our distance canvas does not. So that means without our raycaster, it's not going to be able to detect any of the clicks. So make sure that the graphic raycaster is here when we want to detect clicks. And in the button, I actually did a tiny mistake. Well, actually more. I shouldn't say game over, right? I should say restart. So the color here, I set it to black. Leave that as white and change the interaction color to black instead. So otherwise it won't shift when you're hovering over to highlight it, etc. And let's change our game over here to restart. Or try again. well, restart. So let's just save all of this and let's take it for another spin. Alright, so let's quickly crash. Boom. And then we have our restart. And as we are hovering over now, we can see that, okay, it's reacting and we can hit the restart button. So, yeah, that's pretty good. It works. And it's an easy way to give the user an option to, well, restart our game once they are done and maybe exit to main menu, whatever. So, I'd like to give a shout out to our Patreon supporters. It helps us with every single contribution that we can get. So please consider supporting us on Patreon. The link is in the description. Thanks for watching and don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next video.